She's the founder and president of Parents Defending Education, Nicole Neely. We've got a woke report card out there, and I can't help but say, Nikki, that this just kind of pisses me off that we even have to talk about this.
Yes. Well, here's a spoiler for your listeners. All the consultants failed. They're all awful.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Okay, so how did it work? What happened?
Sure. So, my coworker, Oscar Nomani, who is a former Wall Street Journal investigative reporter, has spent the past 6 months just digging into, as we have this tip line, so people from across the country ran into us, and we started to see the same names over and over again of, companies that were going in, charging huge amounts of money to these districts and pushing critical race theory and those diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives, always ending in hatred, anger, sadness, division. And so we thought, there's something going on here. And so then we started to just write it down. And oh my gosh, 4 months later, 6 months later, we now have a database where we've identified at this point 122 consultants operating in hundreds of districts across the country, and everything, we file hundreds of Freedom of Information Act requests. Everything is backed up with a contract. So this is not just us saying, oh, I heard this, or, somebody told me this. This is everything we have. Literally, we have the receipts. We have the proof, the amount of money, and where these people are operating. And so, we figured this way people, when they go to their school board meeting, if they see a name on their agenda, they can plug it in, and it'll come up in Google, and they'll say, you know what? Parents Defending Education wrote about that. Here's what those people did in Taos. Here's what those people did in Fort Worth. And then they can fight back. Forewarned is forearmed.
I love this so much because they are insistent that this is not happening. Terry McAuliffe actually said it's fake news and that we were all imagining that it's not being taught anywhere. And that is just a blatant lie.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so fascinating to watch all these districts. We saw in Northern Virginia, Loudoun County, we're not doing that. Contract, teaching critical race theory. Fairfax County, we're not teaching that. Our teaching will be informed by the tenets of critical race theory. I mean, you guys, what are you doing? Literally, that's what the contract you signed said. And so just to be able to throw that proof back in their face, it is going on everywhere because, I tell people all the time, you can call it magical unicorn theory. At the end of the day, this is the implementation. Critical race theory views everything, all human interactions, through the prism of race and treats people differently. And that is what our schools are doing right now to our children with our tax dollars, and that is unacceptable.
And the amount of tax dollars will drop your jaw.
Right. So after all of the receipts that we could back up, we have about $20 million. And since the report came out on Thursday, we have received just a fire hose of information of people from around the country. They're here. And so now we're working right now on sending out round 2 of Freedom of Information Act requests. You have more contracts. But that's kind of the amazing thing is there is this groundswell of support of people across the country who are so angry and so motivated by this. They're doing it. They said, I filed a Freedom of Information Act request. I filed a public records thing. Here's the contract I have. Add it to your database. This is this army on the move. And it's really, it's really inspiring. It's tough some days, but this is really inspiring to see how engaged people are on this topic.
Well, because they've had enough. They've pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. And when it comes to our children, that's where we draw the line. We push back. And they're constantly asking us to throw more and more money at education. But if they're dropping a $20 million check to something 90% of parents would disagree with, that's a problem.
Absolutely. Every year I just mailed in my mail-in ballot. And, they're asking for more. We need more bonds. We need more money. Well, how are you spending the money that you already have? You're spending it. My district where I live right now in Arlington, they turned down the offer of free hotspots from Amazon because they wanted a bunch of copies of Ibram Kendi and Jason Reynolds' book stamped. There are kids in my school district who do not have access to regular internet. During a year and a half of Zoom school, you turn that down? Are you kidding me? That's a decision you made and a decision you should be held accountable for.
Well, and it's not just one consultant. It's not just 12. It's not just 50. You talked to 122. That's a lot.
Right. And they're not all millions of dollars, but every dollar counts. We found contracts for $20,000 in Norman, Oklahoma that people are upset about. And I was kind of like, well, that's not a lot of money. But, to some of these districts, it is a lot of money. And again, It's what are you not doing? Are you not buying books? Are you not getting new uniforms for the football team? Are you not upgrading something in the building? And again, it's that so much of this is kept behind closed doors, right? The governed or the people governing us do not want the consent of the governed. They just want to make these decisions because they know better than us, and that's not okay.
Well, the media is their cohort in this, saying that it's not happening in our schools, but it is.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah. And it's so corrosive because, I mean, I have mixed grandchildren, and I worry so much about this sort of teaching because then they go home and they have to try to figure out which parent they're supposed to hate, or which parent can explain to them why the other parent was okay as a partner, or what brought them together in the first place. It's very confusing for children.
Yes. And, I mean, let's think about where our children are academically right now. After, a year and a half of a pandemic, learning loss is significant across the country. And that's on top of, that compounds the already poor performance rates that our schools have, proficiency on reading and write and mathematics. I mean, we are being lapped by the international community. And instead of really doubling down, focusing on the basics, this is what our children are learning instead. I mean, we're getting rid of core curriculum because we're pushing diversity initiatives, because kids are being sent to assemblies and, sessions where they're taught about privilege and things like that.
Yeah.
I would actually rather my kids really get good at the basics before we move on to any of that other stuff.
Read and write and arithmetic. That's what we need. We need STEM work. We need stuff like that instead of worrying about the color of people's skin. I don't want any child left behind. I don't want anybody to fail. I don't care what color they are, but they need to be taught to respect each other as individuals. We've got a lot of bullying going on because of this, too, to be honest.
Absolutely. And that's what we've seen. Last week, we also filed a lawsuit in Wellesley, Massachusetts, because that school had segregated affinity groups. I mean, they were literally excluding children and teachers from attending affinity groups because of the color of their skin. I mean, that's
because
like
they were white.
Board of Education. It's sickening. Yeah. But that district also, the same week that we sued them, it came out that there was a horrible student-on-student bullying incident. And I talked to some parents in the district, and they said, there's a real sense here that the school is more obsessed with the words that hurt each other's feelings than an actual physical assault where kids, punched and spit on and peed on this poor kid. Mm-hmm. That is taken less seriously than, you hurt my feelings. And priorities are really backwards right now.
Well, kids are mean to begin with, so let's just say that. But when you add something like this and give them ammunition, that's scary. So where do people go, Nikki, to read this woke report card?
Sure. It is defendinged.org is our website. And right at the top, there's a line, consultant report card. You can get right to the page. And people can scroll through. They can look for districts. They can look for names. They can search by state. And so you can figure out who is operating your district. And if you have any ideas or if you heard some other names in your district, let us know. Pass us on a tip so that we can dig and vet and we can add them to this database.
Everybody do it. Nicole Neely, founder, president, Parents Defending Education. Thank you, Nikki.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.